Kumar, who was presented just previously. Such an engaging talk, but I was trying to prepare for this presentation. But so I'd like to welcome everyone to my presentation, and the title of this is "Read Me My Text," and this is basically going to focus on three elements, which is peer reading, cultural exchange, and extensive reading. So when I was trying to look back at this, three different pieces when I was trying to put them together, it so much reminded me that one of them has been a big missing piece in India, and that's a kind of motivation which has helped me, pick up a topic like this. So, oops, excuse me. Awesome. Yeah, all right. So slides are moving. Yeah. Okay. A little bit of, before I go about myself, I would like to first of all say that this is, I mean, my engagement with the graded readers has started when I was in ALT, and this was back in 2007 when I first came to Japan, and this just seemed to have given me an opportunity. I never knew about graded readers back in India because we've always had a simple text you always had to go through, which is basically an academic text. And the main goal of your English program itself is it's a subject, you got to study it. That's like, it's a huge chunk of information. Basically, by the end of the year, you should have mastered all of that and, come to take the exam and pass the exam and come out of that grade, which is a very, common, a kind of a mistake, which I think, Indian education system has been having for long. But then the first time I got engaged with these graded readers, it was when I saw this library with similar texts. It was piled like, entire in the library. There were like, 25 sets of a single title. And I was asking myself, why do I have these kind of single text, with these multiple copies? And that was the first time ever I wasn't much educated about graded readers at that point of time. And then going ahead, when I was working at Ehime University, I've very actively made use of those ones. And I do remember one of them, which was like every time I used was a title called Fly Away Home, which was actually a movie as well. And, that was made into a movie. And that just got me much closer to the graded readers. And then last year, 2021, I always remind myself, thanks to Rob, thanks to Paul, thanks to the organizers, basically they've given me a chance to, be engaged at the conference. And I got this great chance to be a co-host at the conference, which even got me much more closer and interested into these, into the extensive reading. So later on, I did, of course, get a little bit of bits and pieces from xreading.com, mreader, ER Central, some of the resources which were out there. And then that just gave me a motivation to go ahead and do some study, some bit of research, to get me much more deeper into the issues pertaining to extensive reading. So I tried to do this when I was in India, because the last 3 years I was kind of there, in a sense, kind of stuck in India because of the COVID, various other things. And I thought that opportunity I should go ahead and, do some study in India. So basically, there are some issues which are probably very particular, like, pertinent to Indian classrooms. One of them is, usually we have like large classrooms. I mean, the lowest size classroom is something like 40. 40 is like the lowest. You can have children going up to 80 in some classes, which are like huge halls, and but the problem is there's only one teacher who's trying to manage everything in the classroom, in spite of this huge strength, huge number of students sitting in the class. That's because resources, I think, probably are, the problem is maybe the budget and the resources, we have so much population, but many less number of schools and less number of teachers. And that's kind of generalizable in many states, except for big cities and private schools. And then, well, its technology is poor. I just didn't want to say it's poor, but it's evolving, because the last 2 years have, have posed very many new challenges for the Indian classrooms, because we were like zero technology. And if you're suddenly saying, okay, let's do this over online, like, no, they were suddenly switching over to online. Nobody knew how to use online. But online pretty much meant last year to pretty much every student as using their mobile phones, and that they had to borrow from their father or from their mother, like, hey, I need your mobile phone the entire day, because the Zoom classes are going to be done and my, classes are going to be done here. So that's the most that they have done. So in a sense, it's evolving. And there's another thing called as silence in the classroom. I have probably never imagined silence in the classroom. Well, this is not a problem, probably. I think, it's quite active, quite noisy in a sense, but at the same time, quite lively as well. To teachers, they love it, because it's an indicator probably to them that teaching is happening, the learning is going on. So there's some specifics which kind of set as a background when I thought I was going to go into this study, but then I have these kind of issues. How am I going to accommodate for these issues? But going further, I've also realized there are also some issues in the Indian education system. That is, only very attentive learners are given more care. Because actually it originates from a different kind of social stratum, I think. Children whose parents are educated seem to get some motivation at home, or at least they go through the, they do the homework, or they do some reading at home before coming to the class. So basically, they're the ones who are kind of, programmed in a sense that, they can come to the class and be attentive in the classroom. And teachers kind of reverberate it, they only kind of look and take care of those students who are more attentive. And the less attentives are kind of neglected, which is very much a commonly seen, again, a generalization. And then the education system mostly is, again, taking English just as a subject, because all we've got this much of syllabus. Okay, you got to just go through the syllabus, study all these topics, read all these. Basically, even if it is your English textbook, you got to do the reading as if it's a volume to be finished by the end of the year. So that's just a very strong kind of a drive that, the education goes by. And then we do have large expectations from Indian parents. That is, I think this is just everywhere, but then what happens in Indian context, I just felt is, the parents do very less, but expect a huge, kind of an output that children has to bring from the school. Otherwise, they're in a mindset of thinking like, okay, I can rather have my child, help me at the home. Why am I sending him to the school at all? Because he's not doing any progress. And I think we've just very recently come out of, a huge number of issues related to child labor. Slowly, parents are sending students to the school, their children to the schools, but then suddenly they're expecting a huge kind of an output from that education. Like huge transformation should happen, because at home they just don't support any of that education. So all this was prompting me to think, if I'm looking back at my topic again, trying to put these pieces together, extensive reading, peer reading, and culture exchange. And it was very obvious to me, extensive reading is completely absent in India, given all these issues. But however, peer reading seems to have had a place, and at places they do practice this. And culture exchange, I think, is just happening just by the nature of it, because because in India we have so many cultures, and children belong to different kind of religions and castes, and all of them put together. there's definitely some culture exchange that's just happening very unconsciously on a daily basis. So these are the kind of factors I was led with before I was going into this study. So basically, peer reading, the kind of terms that are associated with peer reading is mainly we think of fluency, that is pronunciation and word stress, to get that right, and to have a good fluency without pauses or making the right pauses wherever it's required. And then in general, we want students to gain reading confidence. Those are some benefits from peer reading. And these are achieved by reading aloud, mostly in the classes. And usually it's done by pairing students. And sometimes we also do with different levels, try to kind of not match the exact level, because peer reading, we want to help children who are kind of slow learners and not that great in learning, in reading. And on the other hand, culture exchange, what I try to imagine culture exchange, what's happening in India is because of this diversity, there's definitely culture exchange which is happening. And there's also an interesting culture exchange. I just do feel, because of the diversity, children are, of course, students, just as a part of the learning experience, they are always curious about knowing the beliefs of the other children, like the practices and the beliefs. Let us say just the same festival, how that particular festival is celebrated at my friend's home, or maybe at my neighbor's home. They do celebrate a little differently. Or there are also maybe some beliefs in with regards to the values, some families actually don't much care about the virtues, for example. It's just very important to be rich and successful. But then maybe other families maybe just think to be virtuous is the most important kind of aspect of life. So there's so many these kind of diverse cultures which originate because of these the diversity that the society actually brings into the classroom. And then the extensive reading, I don't have to tell this because we've been going through for the last 2 days on the terms associated with extensive reading, which again, all of these I think are kind of missing because we don't have that in the practice in India. Even today, I was lucky to speak with our experts here in the society, in the ER society, and they seem to have not so much heard of any research or any kind of practice which is happening in India. And that kind of has left me with a challenge, how should I bring this piece into the practice? And just visiting on the social cultural aspect, that is, there is a role of peers, and this is more like a broad belief that learning happens, let's say, in a twofold. That is, so I'm going to read just a half part of this. So every function in the child's cultural development appears twice, first on the social level and later on the individual level. So I'm interested in the first sentence. First on the social level and later on the individual level, which brings me back to my 3 pieces, that is peer reading, culture exchange, and extensive reading. So on the social level, I think it has been there in India. On a social level, it's always been there. There is peer reading. There's evidence that there is peer reading, and there's culture exchange which is happening. But what's missing probably is the enrichment, the individual level, the growth of the individual. That is the self habit of reading, the self habit of selecting a book at the right level, and inculcating that habit of reading alone. So this study was carried out in the context of a small school in my own native town, with students of junior high year 3, which were about age 14, and are believed to have lower intermediate level, because we don't have a standard placement test. So this is only my kind of a simple belief, because I couldn't be very sure, of the language levels, but definitely they were lower intermediate, or much less than intermediate for sure, because they've done only reading and writing just 3 years ago. Like they could only make basic sentences and read small passages. So their level wasn't intermediate yet. And I've taken this study on my own as a kind of a voluntary study, and which was done at the early of 2022. And the method I had employed is, I've done this in 3 steps. So step 1 is basically gave them the books, like asked them to choose what they thought was interesting to them. Obviously, they couldn't look into the text and make a judgment of, what was interesting to them. But mostly, I think they've gone by the titles, by the pictures which are on the books. And on the very first step, we've also paired the readers, like who your pair is going to be. And in the step 2, they will take that book home with them on the same day, of course, and then they would read that book. So this is kind of preparation, assuming that they have done some extensive reading at home, at the individual reading at home. So maybe they haven't done it. We're not very sure about it, but that was an assumption. And in the step 3, that is the following day when they come to the school, we've done this peer reading, that is read loudly to each other, and by having the books open in front of them. So they have the book open in front of both the students, and one would take turn to read each other's books. So and then it kind of it rings a bell in the mind, like okay, the goal at the end of this activity somewhere is to promote silent reading, or make the reader individually capable of choosing the books and doing the individual reading at home. So that goal was not forgotten, but we had to follow this method. And the questions we've had when we were doing this is, how does the culture exchange actually happens? And even if it is happening in the process, can we actually accelerate it? And how can we do it? And what are the psychological factors involved? So these were the questions when we've before the study. And then we came up with the observations. I don't have the statistical analysis because we haven't done statistical analysis. So the observations that we've come up with, children are always happy. Basically, I think children are very happy just to get a book in their hand, because usually they don't get to carry a book from school to home, because it's, in some sense, I think this was an encouragement, like, okay, I'm giving you something home. I'm entrusting you to, carry out some work. And then that just seemed like you're investing a kind of your trust in the children, which I think they were really happy to carry something home, saying like, I got this from the teacher, and I was given this work, compared to the normal kind of a homework, where what we usually do in the English readers, not the graded readers, but the textbook as in the English reader. That's just not a very happy thing to carry for the children, but a book especially, which is very colorful and which has a story in it, very happy to carry that. And also happy that they are getting to do this kind of activity in pairs, because they don't know what the entire activity is, but they were definitely just generally very happy to, that they're doing this in pairs. So generally they showed good positive motivation. And in the peer reading, what was interesting is there's a lot of what do you call this, helping each other's in pronunciation. They just don't hesitate, because, and to the point that they even predict, because they know where their partner is going to make a mistake on. And sometimes they just, I think, guess by the pace of the reading or the pauses in the reading of the partner. They just help the partner, sometimes without the control also. So obviously, the exchange is kind of happening. And we've repeated this kind of activity by doing silent reading. That is, we didn't let the children take these books home at all. We said, okay, sit in the classroom. We are going to give you half an hour and do the reading on your own individually, in terms of silent reading. But by the end of the activity, we didn't see there was enough motivation to do the pair work, because I think they weren't really sure of what to, I think they were really sure of the level because they aren't familiar with the text and they aren't familiar with the story, and they weren't just generally confident about, doing that pair work. And it just seemed like they definitely needed preparation to, before going to this kind of a loud reading. So silent reading is definitely not working in the classroom. It should have happened because in the first case, when we've given this to the students to take it home, it should have happened when they've done it at home individually. But in the classroom, it was not happening because, well, so many years of education they have already gotten used to not being silent in the classroom at all. So just generally don't know where to focus and how to use your mind focused on a silent activity. So that just didn't exist. So is actually a silent reading possible in India? And that's a very huge question. Even I would like to ask more experts here of the society. And I don't know. I mean, this could be a very long-term goal. This just means like disrupting the entire system, how it has been working so far. Something has to come into the education system, maybe a major change, or maybe we should have an extra silent classroom itself to promote extensive reading, because the general classroom doesn't really accommodate a silent classroom method. I'm not saying this is a disclaimer. I'm not saying extensive reading or graded reading has to be silent at all, but I think for any to promote the graded readers and to promote silent reading in the class, I don't know where it can come into the education system at this moment. But I was also speaking with Paul today, and Paul has given me a wonderful input. Yes, actually, there's been because since COVID era, I mean, a lot of education has been leaning upon the technology. So what we call as EdTech, and EdTech seems to have been taking over. So maybe silent method can come, or as in maybe students will know how to individually monitor their own reading, to choose a text, browse for a text, and read it, and before go to their classroom activities. So I'd like to conclude here by thanking the organizers here and everyone who have taken this time to listen to my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mahender. If people could use the reactions button or turn on their camera and give our presenter a nice round of applause. We now have some time for questions before the next session will begin at 9:30.